What the Sam Hill's going on here?
The Rewatch Podcast presents the Lois and Clark Rewatch, dedicated to the series Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman on ABC. Join us each week as we investigate the origins of the Man of Steel and uncover crime in Metropolis. Send your feedback to the Rewatch Podcast at gmail.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/rewatchpodcast or follow us on Twitter at rewatchpod.
Oh, hey! Let's get back to it.
And welcome back to the Rewatch Podcast and our Lois and Clark Rewatch. I'm Cory.
And I'm Tom.
I know you, don't I?
Yes, you do, Cory.
Yes. You're the voice of remembrance on the Lois and Clark Rewatch, but I never get to remember.
Well, today you get to remember. In fact, everyone gets to remember this episode.
Tom, are you,
Cory, we have our listeners here. How about we get on with the show?
Right you are. So thank you for joining us, everybody. We're here to discuss 2 more episodes of Lois and Clark, and this week's headline comes from the Sydney Morning Herald, since it's awfully Australian, and it reads, "Not kidding, mates."
I like it. Not kidding, mate.
Not kidding, mates. And we're discussing Swear to God, this time we're not kidding, and soulmates. So let's get straight into it. Episode 1, Swear to God, this time we're not kidding. Written by John McNamara, directed by Michael Lange? Lange? It's hard to tell with that E on the end.
It is, yeah.
And this originally aired October 6th of 1996.
If you think about it, you can see the reason these things are so popular.
Oh, come on. Next you're going to be defending big-time wrestling. Just because something is popular doesn't mean it has any value.
There is some sort of truth here. Or maybe truth is too strong a word.
They have no right. This is our life. It happened to us. We declined to comment, and that should have been the end of it.
Plus, if that was the end of it, we'd be out of jobs.
You're not comparing what they do to what we do.
Well, I like to think that what we do has a higher purpose, but I wonder if it feels that way to the people we go after.
Morning. What can I do to make your day a little better?
A lot of chocolate, a little caffeine, and no fat.
Same here, but double the caffeine and triple the fat.
How are the wedding plans coming?
Pardon?
The wedding plans. You seem a little nervous, but don't worry about it. To be nervous is okay. It's just fine.
I don't mean to be rude, but I have a little rule about talking to strangers.
I'm no stranger, Lois.
Who are you?
I'm Mike.
Hey, I know you.
You know, you worry too much, Clark? About Lois? About everybody? You're doing just fine. But you two really ought to get on your way.
Yes, we should.
Yeah, we're gonna be late.
As Lois and Clark go over newspaper clippings of their past triumphs, Lois wonders if they are cursed, having taken so long to actually get married. Clark eschews the idea, but as soon as they head into work, they are approached by a tabloid TV reporter named Nunk, who is always looking for gossip and scandal stories, and reveals to them that a woman they once put away in prison just escaped, the infamous wedding destroyer, Myrtle Beach. Taking the initiative rather than let Myrtle get the upper hand, the two manage to get a hold of Nunk's notebook, which leads them to Myrtle's doctor, and eventually to a report Lois manages to procure secretly from him that reveals that the doctor himself created Myrtle's evil persona by not telling her that her own fiancé was cheating on her and was actually on the way to their wedding to tell her when he got in a crash and died. The doctor kept the secret over the years in order to study Myrtle and her emotions, encouraging her to break up wedding after wedding. Myrtle, with help from her doctor Voyle, proceeds to harass Lois and Clark through various this means, but they decide to go through with the wedding as they had planned. Myrtle and Voyle show up and use a fake wedding ring they replaced earlier to shock Lois with electricity. Clark pleads with Myrtle and reveals what they know from Voile's report, and eventually Myrtle believes them and stops her crusade to kill Lois. Clark flies Lois to the west to an indeterminate spot that just feels right, and magically, Perry and Jimmy, as well as both sets of Lois and Clark's parents, arrive as well, all of them greeted by a man they recognize as their old friend Mike, who had been appearing to Lois and Clark during the past day, assuring them that everything would be fine, and proceeds to officiate their wedding, bringing together at long last our two intrepid reporters.
And then Voyle let me go. So the police don't have any leads on Myrtle or Voyle. They disappeared. And that's where things stand, wedding-wise.
Does anybody have an aspirin?
Oh, yeah.
I'll get you one.
2 will be fine.
Well, kids, it's pretty obvious the best way to handle
We've
this
decided.
is cancel the wedding and get as far from Metropolis as possible.
Just the opposite, actually.
What?
Now, Lois, I think you should listen to what Sam's saying.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm chiming in here.
Ditto. Okay, but just hear us out, okay? Say we go off to Kuala Lumpur.
As long as they're on the loose, she's gonna try and destroy us.
I guess technically she ought to be called the Happiness Destroyer, huh? What? We have decided to set a trap.
What kind of trap?
A wedding trap.
Oh, I don't think I can take much more of this.
We're sticking to the same time and the same date. Only we don't want to endanger anybody else, so it's just gonna be Clark and me and Superman.
Now, hold on, you two. If there's trouble, we're not running from it.
We're your family. Family doesn't run from trouble.
And neither do friends, right, Chief?
That's right, Jimmy. You tell us where and when, we'll be there with Kevlar and rice.
I'd never tell a bride how to get married. Would you, Ellen?
Well, I mean, it's just so you, Lois. I mean, she always had to be different than all the other kids.
All right, so we have tons of stuff in the investigation here.
Yeah, a lot here. So in the beginning, when Clark drops the laundry, that wasn't in the script. That was something they added later on. He was just supposed to say, oh, no. You know, they just added that for comic effect for whatever reason. After, Mike disappears from the coffee stand, this is kind of interesting. He disappears. Clark turns back around to tip him, but it's someone else there. Mike has just disappeared. The guy takes the tip despite, saying, I don't remember serving you, but he takes the tip anyway. And then, Clark and Lois walk away, and they start talking about they have a weird feeling, but they can't quite explain what it is. So a little comic moment there, which was kind of funny, I thought. When Myrtle and Voyle dine, they're having their little snacks or whatever, they appear to be having what looks like cucumbers and bread on the plate, but there was a line that was missing, where she says, well, this sure beats a tight straitjacket and oatmeal through a straw, referring to what she would have eaten in the prison, I guess.
Yeah, I'd much prefer a cucumber sandwich.
Exactly. When Jimmy asks about bringing a date, Perry had a line that they dropped that said, don't bother Lois with that right now. She's, stressed enough. And then, Lois, thinking they should cancel the whole thing. Clark says, this is just weird. Clark says, well, Myrtle got a lot of therapy, while she was in prison. I'm sure she's done a lot of thinking. If she's smart, she'll just leave the country. I'm like, what? Why would she leave the country?
It's obvious what she's going to do, right?
She's still, a citizen of the United States, and I guess she could leave the country because she's a criminal, but it just seemed odd for him to say, yeah, maybe she'll just leave the country, Yeah,
she's also called the Wedding Destroyer, and they're going to have a wedding, so
Exactly.
Come on, Clark, it's obvious.
Yeah. Lamont, who is Nunk's assistant, he actually, after Nunk meets with Myrtle, he actually admonishes Nunk. He's like, you're crazy. What are you doing? They actually want to kill Lois and Clark. And Nunk's like, no, don't worry. We're not going to be accomplices. We'll turn them in after we get the whole story done, so we'll be fine. He said, you don't take sides in a war zone. And Lamont says, well, it's a wedding. And Nunk says, well, you've never been married. There was another scene where Voyle tells Myrtle Nunk can't be trusted. We already had a scene like this, so this just seemed a little bit extra, just a little redundant. He says, Nunk can't be trusted. And she says, well, after the wedding, he won't be speaking to anyone unless it's through a Ouija board. Dun, dun, dun. We get the idea. She doesn't trust him,
Yeah, I'll say again.
Now this was interesting and really does not fit the feel, I think, of the episode. It goes a little too far, I think. There's a scene where, Dr. Voyle is on the phone with another patient, and you only hear his side of it, but he's telling them basically things like, yes, the pain of her unexpected death, that must have been awful. Yeah, tell me more. Oh, yes, more. Like he's getting like worked up, basically, And then Myrtle walks in, and he's like, he hangs up. He's like, like that. But they cut all of that out except for that gasp of breath at the end. So it was like you sort of get a feel like they're trying to go this way where Voyle, actually like enjoys other people's pain, which is that's a bit deep. That's a bit dark.
Yeah.
That's a bit dark for Lois and Clark. Let's see. There was some extra dialogue from Voyle about Myrtle to Lois, and this is a whole like passage here, which if you go read the scripts, you can find it. But basically, he's defending, how, what happened to Myrtle. He says, I simply found the monster within the woman and coaxed it out, and all I have to do now is feed it occasionally and see that it's protected. It really, shows his messed up mind. How he views Myrtle. Not as a good person, but as just someone who was, a monster inside. And then Lois says, well, I'm going to the police, and and he says, Myrtle stashed, about $50 million, away before you packed her off to, go to the funny farm. We'll be fine. We'll be fine, living, elsewhere in the world and bringing, the maximum amount of pain and suffering to new couples and whatnot. And he's like, get out of here. He pulls a gun, and she says, you know what? You might try to ruin my wedding, but it's not going to happen because it's not about a church. It's not about airline reservations. It's about me and the man I love and what we have. And you don't understand that. And that's why I feel sorry for you. And she walks out. Pretty big scene, pretty long scene. And I mean, I understand what they went for with it by her saying that no matter what, it doesn't matter. But I don't know. It doesn't really add a whole bunch to the story.
Well, and where would she get $50 million from? She wasn't a thief or a robber. She went and upset weddings.
Exactly. So it makes sense why they took that out. Let's see. There's another scene with Mike, and she runs into Mike, and this time he's in a police officer uniform. And Mike says, "Are you all right?" And Lois, says, "Where were you 5 minutes ago?" Because she just got away from Voyle. And Mike says, "Closer than you think, Lois. You shouldn't be out here alone. There are people who love you, and I'll bet they're a little worried about you. You ought to go talk to them." And then Lois says the whole, "I know you, don't I? I see you all the time. You talk to me when I need help, but I can never remember. You're Mike. Your name's Mike. I want to remember all the times you helped me and Clark, but..." And then he says, "You ought to go talk to the people you love, Lois." And then she walks away.
Yeah. Well, they kind of covered that later.
Yeah, they do.
Sorry.
And we'll talk more about that. But they took that out, of course, because they took out the Voyle scene, so there's no need to have that in there. There was a scene where Myrtle says she never got to see her wedding ring because, her fiance died in the car crash and he had it with him. And this just is another scene where Voyle pushes her. He's saying, "Yes, you're right. It isn't fair. If everything was fair, you'd be so happy with Roger, but now you're an outcast and a fugitive, but you're not a victim, are you?" Trying to push her into even, getting angrier and angrier. And then finally, actually these last two here, Clark and Lois, of course, are flying at the end to that place that just feels right. But as they're flying, there were going to be some lines where she's like, "Where are we going?" And Clark is like, I thought this was your idea. I thought you knew where we were going." And she says, "But Clark, you're flying as Clark," because he didn't change to Superman. He's just dressed up in his, And she's like, "Maybe we should land here." And so they land. That's goes into the normal aired version. But then after the wedding, when they're back at their place and they're looking at the wedding picture, they're like, "What was the name of the minister again?" And they look at the picture, and Clark's like, "Oh, that's you know what? I had it. I can't. I forget it. It'll come to me. Let's get going." And we'll discuss the Mike thing coming up. So
my God.
Yeah. Exactly.
Lois, I have loved you from the moment I saw you. I love your humor, your passion, the way you just dive right in, even when you shouldn't. Because you refuse to just watch the world. You demand that it be a better place, and because of you, it is. And today I want to give you as much of the world as I can. So I give you my heart, my soul, our future.
Lois?
Clark, you're my best friend. Until I met you, I never had a best friend. And falling in love with you has been so easy. I don't know why I fought it so long. You have such gentle grace and such quiet strength. And mostly, such incredible kindness. I've never known anyone with as pure a heart. And so, today, I give you my love and my honor and our life together.
Lois and Clark, I now pronounce you husband and wife.
All right, well, let's get into the main story. And this week's lead, go into the chapel.
Keep singing, go.
No,
Go.
that's or the alternate lead, what the F?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so Lois and Clark discussing their crazy lives over some saved newspaper clippings and stuff about, you know, all their adventures as reporters. And Clark just off the cuff says, hey, I guess it's a good thing that, you know, the wedding destroyer's in prison.
Yes.
And you would think that's just like an off-the-cuff joke or something like that. Like,
right.
Yeah, that's right.
Nope.
We did put away the wedding destroyer. No. That's what this episode is about. The wedding destroyer escapes prison, and she's going to come after him.
Yes.
Myrtle Beach.
Myrtle Beach. The name. I didn't even catch the name at first until I started writing down my notes, you know, like my synopsis. I'm like, oh my God, Myrtle Beach. That's terrible. And speaking of Myrtle Beach, you know who plays Myrtle?
I don't even recognize her.
Yeah, that's Delta Burke. She was on the long-running show Designing Women. I don't know if you remember that show. I didn't.
No.
I watched it maybe once or twice. I was not the target audience, definitely. But yeah, she was on that sitcom there. So there you go. Little more sitcom Tom for you.
Is that why she like changes outfits so much throughout this?
Oh, it might be. Yeah, it might be. I remember. I'm trying to remember exactly what Designing Women was about. It might have. Was it about clothing designers? I'm trying to. I just remember it was not my type of a show. I tried to watch it a couple times. It just was not my thing. Let's see. It says it's an Atlanta design firm is what the background of that show was. So I don't know. It says it's a witty bully pulpit for caustic social and political humor. I don't know. You can look it up. But
okay, fair enough.
I don't know. It was like I said, it was not my type of thing, but it went on for a long time. I think 7 episodes or 7 seasons at least. Yeah, it was during that time when Golden Girls was on and stuff like that. I remember it being like similar, to that time frame.
Fair enough. All right, so Lois and Clark, they're reading about their wedding because it's all over the rag magazines. Like everybody wants the scoop on the LNC wedding. Whoa, biggest event of the season in Metropolis. And yeah, they get coffee, the old usual. Lois wants no sugar and no fat, and Clark wants like triple fat and quadruple sugar.
Exactly.
And we get our first glimpse of Mike, who's telling them to stop worrying and just, enjoy the moment and everything.
Right.
So Mike, very familiar. The actor is David Doyle.
Yes.
What's he from?
He's from Charlie's Angels. Is his big thing.
Bosley.
He was Bosley.
That's
which
it.
is kind of funny because, I mean, if we go with this whole Mike thing, which we'll talk about here, this was from the back issues. I just mentioned it now is perfect because if we consider, Mike as being a guardian angel, so to speak, then technically wouldn't Charlie have been the voice of God, and Charlie's Angels really would have been actual angels. So when you go to watch that show, it puts it in a whole different light.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So they have a run-in with this, tabloid journalist, Nunk. Terrible name.
Yeah. Nunk.
And he's harassing them. And it's kind of this thing about, they really do not want to be interviewed by anybody.
Right.
Which is weird for reporters to do.
Well, I think these guys are supposed to be... Nunk is supposed to be, I think, like the TMZ of the Lois and Clark universe. Just very, sleazy. They're not like a competing, newspaper, the Daily Planet and then, I don't know, the Daily Star or whatever. They're just like what you see at the grocery store, like the National Enquirer type thing.
Yeah, rather than having on the front page it would say Lois and Clark getting married, it would say something like Trouble in Paradise. Ooh.
Right. Exactly.
Some weird angle to go at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
These are kind of our bad guys for the episode. So you got Nunk, who's mucking around, annoying them. You got Myrtle Beach, the wedding destroyer, running all over the place. Yep. Preparing to attack Lois and Clark's wedding. Yeah. And then she teams up with her therapist, Voyle, who he just totally gets off on, people being miserable and...
Exactly.
Myrtle causing all this chaos. It's weird.
See, here's the thing. I don't mind... I'm fine with Nunk and I'm fine with Myrtle. It's a typical... it's very... was it season 2 or season 3 that they had all the little one-off villains that you never see again? It feels like that. It feels like that. The thing that bothers me about this episode is Mike. I can't. I don't know. There's some. I know what they're going for, but it just feels like there had to have been a better way to have done a wedding. But maybe not. Maybe this is the only way they could have done it.
Yeah, can they have a straightforward wedding? Because we've already seen that. They have to come up with something totally off the wall, right?
And it's this character, this is the first time we've ever seen him. He's never appeared in the show before, but we're supposed to believe, that he's been there, this whole time, throughout their whole lives, helping them along, which is what they should have done is peppered him in, once in a while here, just have him in the crowd or something. In a scene here or there. And the way it came off, I was just I don't think we know this guy. I don't remember seeing him ever. When I first watched it back in the 90s, I was I don't remember this guy. Who is this? And I was thinking to myself, did I miss an episode or something? It's it confused me.
Yeah, I agree. But when you kind of explain it like that, it kind of makes me think of Rob Schneider in all those Adam Sandler movies where he'd show up and be that guy who would be you can do it.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Have Mike be that guy who's just in the crowd here or there. It's just go Superman or something like that.
Right, exactly.
Just every once in a while. Pepper him in, as you say.
Yeah, see, I just think, if you put him in there, then it's kind of oh yeah, he has I have seen him before. He is, he is a part of their lives, kind of. I don't know, I just thought this was I guess this is just it's a big plot device just so they can, get the wedding done, have it be very magical and whatnot. I'm not a fan, really, of the character.
Well, and, we're going to go ahead and we're going to, cancel all the wedding plans that Lois and Clark have made. The reception's off, the rehearsal, that's off. We're not doing that. She's just canceling everything because Myrtle is just taunting them with tape recordings of people crying over the wedding march and canceling airplane tickets for Martha and Jonathan.
Exactly.
And they're oh my God, this is so terrible. We can't do anything anymore. Everything's ruined. And you're just not really. And I think Voyle points it out to her at some point where he's just what are you doing? why are we just taunting them like this? Like, why aren't we killing them or something?
Exactly.
And she's like, no, I'm just building up to it.
Yes, very much like that, yeah.
And then, of course, you got, like, Superman getting involved because Nunk is, like, following them around, spying on them with his telescopic microphones and whatnot. And they're just, like, making plans with Myrtle to, like, know everything that she's up to, and like as soon as you like disrupt the wedding, like we're gonna get the scoop and stuff, and Superman's just like, I'm taking your camera and I'm crushing your stuff and we're stealing your notebooks and stuff, and you're like, these aren't very good bad guys. He's not even a very good skeezy reporter guy, right? And then they have this throwaway scene where Lois and Clark track down Myrtle's old bridesmaid and friend Emily.
Yeah. Where did that went? Nowhere.
It served to be like later. They're like, yeah, your husband to be was like having an affair with her, and you're like, yeah, oh, that woman that you interviewed for 2 minutes, like,
right?
Who I forgot about. The only reason I remembered her is because Emily is played by Leanne Hunley, who was in Dawson's Creek, a show that I really like.
Right.
But if I didn't know the actress, I would have been like, oh, that's right, they did talk to someone before.
Right. His cheating on Myrtle works without having met the one he's cheating with, you know? Like, it's fine. Like, we understand. Yes, he was cheating on her with someone. We don't need to know exactly who it was. It was just someone, you know, in her party or whatever.
And then the whole thing comes out about Voyle being this perv, you know, pain-loving guy. Terrible liar. Like, they interview him, and he's just, like, sweating bullets.
I know.
He has a secret lair back there.
He
for
does.
no reason. Like, all the bad guys have secret lairs, even if they're just, like, random pain-loving therapists.
What's funny is, like, the one thing I like about him, is the way he said nunk. And, like, it was, for some reason, the way he delivered that line, nunk, you know, like, the way he said it was embedded in my head from when I had seen this years and years ago. I remember watching this episode and remembering that, oh, he's going to say nunk, you know, for some reason. I was like, what? That's stuck in my head. I don't know why. It's just funny.
All right, so that's the whole thing, right? Lois and Clark know this is coming. Voile's totally in on it. He actually tells Lois his plan, like how much he loves pain and suffering, and then just lets her go because he's like, if you stay here and I kill you, then that's not going to be very satisfying. Like, I want to see Myrtle kill you. So they've decided, well, we'll keep the wedding date, but it'll just be us and Superman. And then Perry and Jimmy are like, we're coming too. And the parents are like, of course, we're going to be there. So, all right. So everybody's there.
Yep.
It's just not a big, like, invite everybody wedding. And Myrtle has this thing where she swapped out her wedding band with this electrocution device that she tested that on Nunk earlier.
Yeah, killing him.
And killed him. So, like, that's her big thing, is she just wants to, like, electrocute Lois because they figure, like, Clark will feel more pain if she dies.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, if she lost Clark, she's like, maybe she wouldn't feel as much pain as if I killed you and watched Clark's pain. For, you know, probably the only reason being that Clark, like, wouldn't feel the electricity. Well, like, she doesn't know that, but, you know, from an audience standpoint, like,
right.
You need to think that Lois is in peril. And then they tell her about Voile's whole thing about, he was keeping it from you, your husband-to-be was cheating on you and stuff.
Right.
And she kind of just breaks down and that's it. It's over.
Yeah, it's a pretty quick ending right there for her whole storyline. Expected a little bit more. You know, maybe if that former bridesmaid, that Emily, if she had shown up and said, "It's true, I'm so sorry, Myrtle," you know, then it might have, maybe that would have felt a little better if she had shown up. It made more sense why she was introduced. But
yeah, well, she could have like tracked her down like after the interview or something and killed her.
Yeah,
or something.
Exactly.
To be like, no, this can't be true or something. Yeah. Just so she's at least killed somebody, so you think she's a credible threat.
Right, exactly.
But from what Emily told us, like, she would just show up at weddings and like release rats or something.
Yeah.
Poison wedding cake or something. Maybe that killed some people. I don't know. They don't tell you.
Right.
But anyway, even Myrtle gets a visit from Mike, who's like, everything will be all right, Myrtle. Yeah, she's going back to, like, a prison hospital, but whatever.
Yeah. Oatmeal through a straw, you know. No more cucumber sandwiches for you.
No more fancy dresses.
Exactly.
Anyway, okay. So this is it. This is the wedding. Don't know why, but they're drawn to the, east?
No, they said west. I think they said
West,
just keep going west.
whatever.
Yeah.
And Clark flies Lois out there. And she actually kind of, like, it's like she doesn't feel it. Like, Clark's the one who's like, can't you feel it? And she's like, oh.
Right.
And then she's like, oh, I think we're here.
Right.
And they're just on some, like, random hillside at sunset. Perry and Jimmy show up. Parents show up, and everyone's like, hey, Mike. Yeah.
I know.
No explanation who this guy is, except that Lois says, I think Lois and Clark sort of back and forth say, like, you give us advice, and like...
Throughout our whole lives, you've been there.
But then we don't get to remember. I'm like, so hang on, he gives you advice, but you don't remember that he gave it to you? Then what's the point? Who is this guy?
I think what she means is he gives them advice to sort of help through whatever they're going, like whatever situation they're in. But then they don't get to remember that he was the one who gave them the advice. I think that's what they're talking about. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But still, it's like everybody knows Mike. And, okay, easiest explanation, guardian angel, right?
Exactly.
You know that's what Lois was going to say, but he cuts her off.
That's the big consensus everywhere, online and in the back issues and current forums, everything. Like I looked it up because I wanted to see, like who the hell was Mike? And the idea is, yeah, that's it. That's who he was. Guardian angel, voice of God. There's other, they said maybe the angel, the archangel Michael, that type of thing is what they were saying.
I love that they get Clark to, like, make sure, like, he's speaking to the audience pretty much.
Yes.
He's supposed to be talking to the parents and friends and whatnot, but he's just like, I want to make sure that everybody knows this isn't some sort of weirdo fake out.
Yeah.
You think the parents and Jimmy or someone would be like, yeah, we know, Clark. We're here.
Yeah, this is like the ultimate, fan service right here. This is when there's no doubt that they've been watching what the fans have been saying for a long time. Remember, I told you about that stock ticker that went by, a couple episodes back, where they actually put on the stock ticker FLOC, fans of Lois and Clark, plus 0.75% or whatever. So they do pay attention, and this is just further proof of it.
Mike actually says, like, we know this means a lot to a lot of people out there, and
right,
exactly. We'd want to let them know that we're listening. And you're like, oh,
right,
seriously?
Yeah, they're just hammering it home here.
This is
and they have
real.
to because they lost a lot of people with the whole clone fake out thing. People were pissed about that. So like the wedding itself is nice. It's this nice little intimate thing, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But like for me, it's kind of like the whole breaking the fourth wall, making sure that everyone knows this is real, talking right directly to the fans. Just sort of, I don't know, it took me out of the moment a little bit. Actually, a lot. It took me a lot out of the moment.
Exactly. Took me right out. And you're right, like their nuptials back and forth, like, our life together, our love and all that. Beautiful. But yeah,
right.
Just that whole, like, driving it home, pretty much speaking to the audience, I was like, can we knock this off? Like, this is really throwing me off.
Yeah, I don't know. I just,
Yeah.
I mean, now if there is, well, actually, that's in the bylines. We'll talk about that.
Okay. Well, and then after the wedding, they throw us a fake out of Lois waking up on the couch, and she's like, oh, don't tell me this was a dream. And no, it's not a dream. Is that funny? Is that funny at all?
It's not funny.
No, it's not.
It's not funny at this point, Definitely not. Definitely not funny.
Clark gets a call from his parents, right? And he's on the phone with them. Lois picks up the wedding certificate, framed, make sure she's got it, like, right up so you can see it in frame of her sitting there looking at it, like, official, like, we've signed it, we're married.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, I get it.
Did you notice what it says on there?
No, I was just... Again, it's like, I was taken out. I'm just like, what, you're showing us a wedding certificate now just as, like, final proof? Ugh.
There was that deleted scene where they couldn't remember the name of Mike, the minister or whatever they said in that deleted scene. But on the wedding certificate, it says on there, wedding Lois Lane and Clark Kent, on this day and this, whatever. It was signed Mike, and then a squiggly line which I don't know if it was supposed to be his last name. They didn't want to put it in there. It was Mike, squiggly line, and then AMG was right after that. And then underneath it, it said Divine Representer.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, it's just basically, yeah, Divine Representer has got to be, he's an angel,
Yeah.
definitely. But like I don't know what the AMG was. Mike, squiggly line, AMG.
I've got nothing funny to come up with for that.
I got nothing either. I'm just wondering if anyone else out there knows what that was. Because I stopped it and I went back and forth a couple times, just frame by frame, to see if that's what it said. And it pretty much looked like Mike, and then like either a sideways N or a skewed Z, a squiggly line, and then AMG. And I'm not sure if that stands for anything in particular.
The actual marriage guild.
The actual marriage guild. There you go. There you go.
Divine Representer. Ugh.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But that's not the final bit of cheese that we get.
No.
There's still one little bit.
They're preparing to fly to Hawaii on the Superman Express. 2 minutes, Lois. We'll be there.
Yes.
Zoom in on the wedding picture. Everybody's there. Mike's in the middle. Mike comes to life in the picture and gives us a bit of a wink. Ding.
Yep.
I don't know. I've got no idea. Seriously, like this. What? That's how I come away from this. I'm like, okay, they're married. Cool. Finally.
Yeah.
But
yes.
What?
I know. It's just kind of like, it's not, I mean, like we said, they couldn't do, like a big church wedding because they already did that. It would just feel less, I guess, at this point. But I guess this is the only way you could do it. Like I said, I just think, I don't know, the whole Mike thing just really took me out of the whole episode. And I'm glad they're married. I'm glad they're finally together. It just feels like this episode was just like, it was just like, it is. It's the producer saying, hey, this is what you wanted. Here you go. We're done messing around with you. Enjoy. But it just feels so like, it's not as satisfying as I think it should have been for me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's just, yeah, I think we've said it all.
Yeah, I think so. We're not down on a lot of episodes like this, but this one was just, I don't know, it just does not sit well with me.
Yeah. A couple of quick bylines. Lois makes an amnesia gag at the beginning. She gets whacked in the head.
Oh, that's right. That's not funny either.
Not really.
Funny either.
Not really. I laugh at it, but not with it.
I think it's just all these little jokes about that are basically like saying, yeah, we know we screwed up, and so we're sorry. But like, it takes me out of the fantasy world I am in when I'm watching the show. It's like, oh, come on. It's just more for the fans. It's a huge fan shout out in I just think the wrong way.
And going from the beginning of the episode to the end, really, they get a telegram from the president.
Yeah.
And like Lois is like totally astonished.
Yeah.
They know the president.
Yeah.
She's interviewed him and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Why would she be so like amazed? Like, again, I was just like, continuity? I think we were talking about continuity last week, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, weird. So, yeah, all in all, cool that they're married and stuff.
Yes.
But it's just weird. And I'm not sure I like the episode all that much, really.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a fan.
All right, so let's get into this week's quote vote.
What's everybody standing around for? This is a newspaper, not happy hour at Buckingham Palace. What are we here, the Daily Planet? Or second stringers from the Weehawken Gazette?
Am I making myself perfectly clear?
All right, so not a lot of votes this week, but we do have a winner, so cue the music.
Sean Connery and Vincent Price are being married by Hick. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to join these two people in holy matrimony. I'm not used to doing this without a flower girl. Sweetie, maybe you would, do you, Sean, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?
Skip down, Reverend.
Blah, 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 till death do you part.
Answer the good Reverend.
Could you repeat the question? Yay! And scene.
Short but sweet.
Short but sweet.
Alright, so getting into our second episode discussion today. The episode is titled Soulmates, written by Brad Kern and directed by Richard Friedman. This originally aired on February 18th of 1996.
Oh, hello. I hope I wasn't interrupting anything. Well, more to the point, I hope I was.
Look, I don't know who you are, but...
Well, actually, we've met before, Mr. Kent. Although I doubt if you'd remember. I'm...
H.G. Wells. He's the one who took us back through time to save you as a baby.
That's interesting. You weren't supposed to remember any of that ever happened.
Yes, but you told me about it when we ran into Tempest the second time. Oh, actually, you didn't. Your older you did.
My older me? Really? It's jolly good. I mean, it's nice to know that I have a future. May I? Do you mind?
Well, actually...
Oh, by the way, my older me didn't happen to mention that I'd be stopping by today, did he?
No.
Yeah, it's too bad. It'd be nice to know if this is all going to work out in advance, you know. But, well, hopefully I'll remember to tell you next time. It's a lovely, lovely place you have.
Thank you.
Yes.
I think I'm getting a headache.
Oh, great. It's our honeymoon night.
Which is why I've come rather urgently, I'm afraid. At the risk of sounding indelicate, you two haven't... What I'm trying to say is... Speaking to the point, you two haven't consummated your marriage yet, I hope?
What?
No, I mean, not yet. No.
Good. Then I'm not too late.
Too late for what?
I'm here to help you reverse a terrible curse.
A curse?
Yes, quite. Cast upon your love centuries ago by a wicked, vindictive soul who was bound and determined to destroy your love forever. Right. I didn't think you'd believe me, which is why I wanted to confirm my suspicions first. Tomorrow's headline, if you consummate.
A curse. Naturally. Why not?
While Lois and Clark are finally ready to consummate their marriage, they are interrupted by their old friend, H.G. Wells, who has returned to tell them that before that can happen, they must break a curse placed upon their love long ago. Using Wells's new time-traveling technique, they head back to medieval times, where Lois and Clark's souls were inhabiting the bodies of a couple named Lady Loisette and Sir Charles, who is also secretly a Robin Hood-type figure named the Fox. It is here that the curse was created when Lois shunned King Tempest and ran off with Sir Charles. This time, however, Lois says she will marry Tempest if he spares Charles's life, to which he agrees, preventing the curse from ever having happened. They return to the present day, however, all is not well, as a descendant of Tempest is king of the United States and is set to marry Lois. Wells theorizes that by upsetting the balance of good and evil in the past, the domino effect is pushed forward to the present, changing things for the worse. The trio go back in time again, this time to the Old West, where their souls inhabit the bodies of Lulu and a mild-mannered telegraph operator who is secretly a hero named the Lone Rider. Once again, Tempest is aggressively pursuing Lois's hand in marriage, and unless she agrees, he will kill her parents. The Lone Rider manages to figure out where her parents are being kept and saves them, enabling Lulu to deny Tempest and resetting the balance of good and evil as he is arrested. Upon returning to the present, they find things have indeed reverted to normal, and the two proceed on their way to, do what comes naturally. Do the deed, the horizontal mambo. You get the point.
Sorcerer, you must stop talking to rodents. It completely undermines your credibility.
Aaron, I feel a strange magic. A force unlike any other has entered our sphere.
Never mind that. I have more pressing concerns. The Fox has stolen Lady Loisette from me, and I simply can't have that. I hate it when the hero gets the heroine. So cliché.
Why do you want to force her to marry you anyway? Simply to rule over her fiefdom?
Why, sure. Power's fun. But the added bonus is that it will destroy the Fox because she's his girl. That's why I want you to make her love me.
Would that I could, sire. Unfortunately, spells can enchant and they can damn, but they can never force the ways of a heart.
You're sure about that? You've talked to all the other sorcerers?
Positive.
Very well, I'll try a more conventional approach first. But if that fails, I want you to prepare your most diabolical curse and doom their love for all time.
Gladly.
right, so not as much in the investigation for this one, but still a bit.
So there's a little scene that was supposed to be in there between Jimmy, well, it was Squire Jeremy in the past, and basically Tempest is talking to him, asking, wait, who are you again? And where's Sir Charles? And Squire Jeremy is like, well, he's out on patrol, and Tempest is he's like kind of like, hey, wait, what's the deal here? Every time the fox shows up, Charles goes missing, and then vice versa, and then he's like, no, that'd be ridiculous, something like that, like sort of like what we've thought about before, different people would say something like that. So there's that little scene, and then he says, well, bring him in alive, go find Sir Charles and tell him to bring the fox in alive. It's my job to kill the fox, no one else's. I offer, $1,000 of gold or whatever to the man who brings him in alive. So just a little scene that it's just a little extraneous. We don't really need it. Just gives more time to Jimmy, who didn't really get a whole lot to do in the episode.
Yeah, I guess his Squire character didn't really have a name, so
yeah,
at least gave him a name.
And then let's see, Lady Loisette has a freak out because she should be on her honeymoon with her love. Instead they're traipsing around the forest being chased by a psycho, and so she has one of her lowest moments basically. There was a throwaway joke where Marta, instead of Martha, Marta had a boar or whatever for them to eat, and she asked, Marta for a napkin, and I was like, what? What the heck's a napkin? And then later on, there was a scene between John and Marta saying, Sir Charles and Lady Loisette are acting weird. They're like, yeah, I know. She asked for a napkin. It's like, what's a napkin? Like, exactly. A long way to go for a little joke.
Yeah.
There was an extra lovey-dovey moment with Sir Charles and Loisette getting all romantic and kissing and, and then Wells interrupts. He's like, pardon me, I don't mean to interrupt. And Lois is like, we could set our clocks by it. So he keeps doing it. And this is fun. I like Tempest. There was a line that they cut out where during the sword fight, Tempest is like, this is great drama. Well, I bet someday somebody will write a story about this and it'll be enjoyed by millions. I was like, nice.
Love it.
Yeah. And then finally we got Perry. When he sees Wells in the Daily Planet, he's like, sorry, delivery job's been filled already. It's like, we're not hiring this weirdo. I don't know who he is, but we're not hiring him. And then at the end of the scene, at the end of the show, when they're finally ready to, get it on, when they're finally there, the phone starts ringing, and Lois looks at Clark and is like, don't even think about it. And Clark pulls out the wire from the wall of the phone, and they get down to business.
Oh, there you go.
Hello. So sorry to interrupt.
Some things never change.
In any lifetime.
All right. I beat Tempest and I got Lois back. Now let's get out of here before they catch up to us.
If only it was that simple.
Now, wait a minute. You said that Clark had to defeat Tempest. He did that.
Well, temporarily, perhaps. You see, I just had a conversation with a passing, what do you Yanks call them? Yes, a buckaroo, who informed me that Tempest Tex is holding hostages near and dear to Lulu. Insurance, apparently, to, make sure that the wedding goes through. The short of it is, you haven't defeated Tempest until you save them first.
Great. Did the buckaroo say where Tempest was holding them or who it was?
Unfortunately, no.
Over there.
What are you doing?
I'm looking for your secret identity. Tempest said you had one.
Your personas does seem to be part of your destiny.
Yeah, and trouble seems to be part of mine. Bingo.
You sure this is gonna work?
Oh, please. Who are you talking to? Hurry. Get. Oh, thank goodness. There you are. I'm so glad you're here.
Is that a fact? And where, pray tell, is that pesky lone rider?
He rode off. And I screamed for help, and I was rescued by this mild-mannered telegraph operator.
Really? Well, how fortuitous, sir, that you just happen to be here. Out in the middle of nowhere. Miles from the nearest telegraph. We met before. You look awfully familiar.
All right, so let's get into the main story. And our lead, coitus interruptus.
Yes.
Indeed. Who would have guessed this was a Hey She Wells episode.
I had no idea, but it's good to have the original back.
Terry Kaiser's back.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, before leaving for their honeymoon, Lois and Clark are preparing to consummate the marriage, as Wells puts it.
Yes.
But he has showed up because, well, in fact, he wants to interrupt.
Yes.
And, it was pretty cool. Clark, for some reason, doesn't remember him. We talked about this a while back with the second Wells episode. And we thought that maybe Clark did remember, but apparently he doesn't. But, the time travel stuff where, she talks about, like, it was you, but it was the older you.
Yeah.
With our second encounter with Tempest, but he doesn't know that because, we've gone back to younger again. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty cool.
There's a neat turnaround there.
Of course, they cannot have sex because of this curse that is put on them. And it turns out that Wells has this new device that lets him track souls back through time. And he sort of tells them that, like, their souls are always intertwined, always together. And at some point, their previous life was cursed. And every time their love is consummated, something bad happens to Lois. And in this case, it will be a deadly virus that, of unknown origin. It's just a headline from tomorrow's paper.
Which is odd because this has never come up before when H.G. Wells has talked to him.
Yeah.
Technically, it should have always been there. But, we'll go with it.
Yeah. And what if they did, like, do it before they got married?
Exactly.
Just working on the assumption that they were waiting until they got married, but whatever.
Exactly.
So he's going to take them back into a previous life to when they were cursed so they can stop the curse from happening. And they end up in this life where Clark is a character named the Fox, and she's Lady Loisette. But this is pretty much a Robin Hood Maid Marian situation, right?
Exactly.
And it's kind of showing that Clark's got this thing for, like, being in disguise, being, multiple personalities and whatnot. And Tempest is our bad guy, or Sir Tempos.
I know. It was cool to have him back. I think he's acts just like Tempest would act, even though he's like a descendant of Tempest or whatever. It's just there wasn't a lot. I mean, he did break the fourth wall a little bit, but it wasn't quite as good as, like, it's been in previous times. There wasn't a lot for his whole character to do. He just mostly reacts, to like, oh, get him, that type of thing. Yeah. Marry her, get him. It's like, okay. And he breaks the fourth wall, which is fun, but it's not. His other appearances were much better. There was more for him to do as a character.
Yeah, and we should say this is Lane Davies coming back as Tempest as well, so we've got continuity across the board. They capture the Fox, and they're going to behead him, but all the merry men show up, and they're led by Perry, who is actually Friar Harry. Mm-hmm. And, of course, Martha and Jonathan are there.
Yes.
And they are, like, simple peasants or something.
Right.
I thought their reactions to stuff was pretty good. Like, we talked about, like, a cut thing from the investigation, but, I thought they were pretty good, because he's like, Mom? Dad? And they're just like, what? Exactly. And then later with the wild boar and everything.
Yeah.
It's all good. I really like those two in this episode. So, of course, the whole thing, the Fox is actually Sir Charles, prize knight of Baron Tempos. And as he and Lady Loisette are in love, he's going to have his sorcerer put this curse on them. So, what did you make of this sorcerer guy?
I didn't really think much about him, really. Just like, he's there just to put this curse on it, but it doesn't happen. Because of what happens, with Lois and what she does eventually. So it was fine. I mean, this episode it's hard for me not to think of things like Men in Tights. Like I was thinking of Robin Hood Men in Tights while I was watching this. It just was very, I don't know, it's very comical to me. Like,
I know, like he's talking to a rat, and it turns out that the rat was his, like, ex-wife or something.
Right. Well, and they do drop the name Morgana, who is like, from the Arthur legends and everything. But it just sort of took me out of it. I was just like, oh yeah, it's Robin Hood. We're men in tights.
Yeah. And we get back to, like, Lois just worrying about, like, stuff getting in all the way of their happiness. Why, why was us? Kind of stuff, and Clark's like, oh, come on, Lois, love will conquer all, and you're like, okay, whatever. Wells comes up with this plan to have Tempest duel the Fox, and win. So that way, the curse will never be cast, and everyone's lives would be in ruins there. But hey, at least Lois and Clark could return home safely.
See, what I was thinking was, there's really, I couldn't imagine Sir Charles winning, because this is Tempest. This is not future Tempest. This is the Tempos that lives during this time. So he's a trained fighter, you know. But this is our Clark, who really doesn't sword fight, and he doesn't have his powers. So I didn't think he was going to win.
Yeah, it was a weird plan, really.
Yeah.
Because they're just like, well, screw these guys' love. Like, let's screw over their love so we can have our love.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the best resolution to that problem, is it?
No.
But there are some pretty cool lines as the fox reveals his identity. And Jimmy the Squire is there. And he's like, Sir Charles is the fox? That's awesome. And then Tempest is like, I can't believe I was fooled by the mask over the eyes.
Yes.
Lois is like, yeah, tell me about it. Right?
Exactly. We can all be galactically stupid once in a while.
So they duel. Tempest wins. He spares Sir Charles' life. It's on the condition that Lois marry him willingly and Sir Charles leave the country.
Yep.
And that's pretty much how they leave it. And you're just like, wow, that's just terrible.
Yeah.
They just screwed these people over. And it doesn't actually work out for them.
No.
Because back in the present, they find that, like, the balance of good and evil has now shifted.
I like
so
that.
In the present, they're not married anymore. Rather, Lois is actually about to marry King Tempest. Because America now has a king for some reason, and Lois is going to marry him.
Exactly.
It was a good bait and switch, though, with Perry.
Oh, yeah.
What in the name of the king are you doing?
Exactly.
And you think he's talking about Elvis, but no, it's not the king of America. Pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
So they decide to go back to another more recent afterlife or pre-life or whatever.
Right, when they didn't have to worry about curses.
Yeah, and this is in the Old West. And Clark is there, and he's the lone rider now.
Yes, not the ranger, the rider.
And Lois is Lulu.
Lulu.
And the bad guy is Tempest Tex.
Tempest Tex.
Okay, so he has to change back into his alter ego as a telegraph operator, mild-mannered telegraph operator at that, to save the hostages that Tempest Tex has for insurance, so Lulu will marry him and he can inherit, like, her parents' land and whatnot.
Right.
Right? So that's the whole thing here. And Lois's parents, they're hostage. Lulu signs over her land to Tempest, and she prepares to marry him to make the whole thing legal. So Clark finds her parents in a rigged outhouse. It's got dynamite on it. And her parents are his parents. And immediately I was like, oh, you're joking. This is like Back to the Future 3 stuff here. Like,
right, yeah.
Why is Marty McFly's mother playing the mother of the McFly family back in the Old West? And you're like, it's kind of weird and gross.
Right, yeah.
This is the way these family ties come together. They explain it away later about, like, she was left on their doorstep. Isn't that crazy? So, yeah, saves the day and everything is back to normal.
The balance is reset.
Yeah. So, again, like a really just quick wrap-up ending.
Yeah, it was. This is definitely not one of my favorite episodes. It's too bad because it does have time travel, which I love. It does have Wells and Tempest, which I also love. It's just a so-so episode. It's not, doesn't really do it for me.
Exactly. It's like the wedding episode just before. Like, it should be so epic. And, oh my God, it's Terry Kaiser and Tempest. And
I do like this one better than that. But still, there's got to be better episodes coming. I do believe that we are going to see Tempest one more time.
Oh, well, that's cool.
Yeah, I remember a storyline, and I thought this is the one it was going to be once I saw Tempest, but it's not. So I think there's still one more left, unless I'm just mixed up. But I think there's one more left.
Well, let's hope so.
Yes.
Because I'd hate to see Terry Kaiser go out on this.
Right.
It was a good performance and everything, but yeah, just the whole thing, just like, the Robin Hood, the Lone Ranger, I get it. Yes. Blah, 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 whatever. You know, everything back to normal. Lois and Clark go home, and they start to fly up from the bed as they go to Plowtown, as I've so succinctly written it in my notes.
Yes. Exactly.
But they do it. They finally get down Mm-hmm. And there you go. They're done. The wedding is official. All right, so some bylines. We talked about Tempest breaking the fourth wall, as always. Yep. Loved it. Great lines. I hate it when the hero gets the heroine. So cliche. And the other one I wrote down, this is where the bad guy speeds things along. Exactly. During the wedding. It's just like Wells, Terry Kaiser as well. It's like great performances and stuff. Mm-hmm. The story is what let it down here, right?
Exactly.
Baron Tempos just like straight up kills a guy with a mace by accident.
Yep. It was funny.
It was actually kind of a funny moment because he throws it at him. He dodges it, but it hits a guy behind him. Oh man, I don't know why, but that really made me laugh. A new girlfriend for Jimmy, another one.
Yeah, I bet she doesn't last more than this episode.
They make it sound like she's like his, soulmate. That's what this episode is. Like, you're destined to be with this girl, Jimmy. You should ask her out. But yeah, I'm not sure that's gonna last.
Right.
We'll wait and see, I guess. But yeah, I think we're both in agreement. Like, both these episodes, they should have been really, really good. Yeah. And the storylines, like where they're going with it, is great stuff.
Right.
Good performances. But there's just something, with the story along the way. Too many things that make you go, huh?
I know.
And it lets it down, unfortunately.
Oh, wow. I'm beat.
You're kidding. Honey, please tell me you're kidding.
Don't move.
I know this is our first time and everything, and I really want everything to be perfect. But if you had your heart set on Hawaii, I'd really understand.
You were saying?
Didn't spill a drop.
I don't want anything to cloud this moment.
A moment we're destined for.
That's what makes it so special.
Lois Lane.
All right, well, let's check out the back issues.
So a lot of people were saying, they were wondering if this was a real marriage, because wasn't this performed out of country, it seemed like, so is that still legal in America? No one remembers who Mike is after he goes. Won't people wonder, who married them? Who took the picture? Everyone's in the shot. It's like, what's going on?
Love it.
Yeah, basically people are like, no, they're married. Period. You just got to accept the fantasy. Suspension of belief, or suspension of disbelief. They said the producers would not take this away now because that would be death for for the show. If they reversed it at this point. Someone said, which I thought was interesting, that maybe they were hoping for the show to end on a cliffhanger. And then move from the TV show to a movie about the death of Superman, because there was a lot of talk about it at that time, about a movie about the death of Superman. And that would enable them to effectively reset the romance with Superman, bringing him back from the dead as a new Superman and possibly a new actor, they said. So it would be like a good way to jump into a movie, which I thought, that's interesting. It didn't happen, but it's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Some people were saying Mike could have been a reference to Mike Carlin, who was the DC editor at the time. And he basically said, this is what goes. You can do this, you can do this, you can't do that. He was, I guess, or the Superman. He was the Superman editor at the time.
Oh, cool.
So they thought that could be, that might have been why they named him Mike, because he was the end-all be-all of what happens on the show with Superman, because he held the rights, Let's see. They also said Mike could have been Mr. Mxyzptlk, which is, the impish character from the comics that is like a genie type, can do anything he wants. They said that could have been a reference to him.
Yeah, sure. That makes as much sense as anything, I guess. Yeah. Mr. Mxyzptlk has been jumping in and out of the fifth dimension for all these many decades, just to give people advice they wouldn't remember.
Exactly.
And then showed up to perform the wedding of Lois and Clark. Sure.
I do know we are going to see Mr. Mxyzptlk.
Oh my God.
In a future episode. So just you wait. Just you wait.
Wow.
They like that Mike married the two of them because Mike knows that Clark is Superman, and Lois is marrying not just Clark, but Superman. So it makes more sense for this to be a more complete union because he's marrying Lois to Clark and Superman rather than just being married to Clark. It's kind of a interesting point, and there's a lot of arguments back and forth about why it was good and why it was bad, but in general, people were okay with the episode. They said they're glad they're together. And then finally, with the second episode, they said Lois seems to be not as tough as she used to be. Yeah, she still used her karate kick on Tempest, but she seems less aggressive like she used to be. And the argument is that what a couple people had said, that we're just seeing her as vulnerable now because we're seeing her with Clark, whereas before she was just on her own.
Strong, independent woman. Right.
Exactly. Now that she's with Clark, she feels like she can let that guard down, and she's still tough, It's just she can show her softer side more, whereas before it was kind of hidden away, which makes sense. I like that. It's a good way of explaining it. They liked the love conquers all message. They said it was very touching, very romantic, which is, I guess that's their key demographic they were going for. And finally, they said Tempest wasn't as good as he was. He felt like a snidely Whiplash character, twirling his mustache. The guy who ties the damsel to the train and just laughs, So I can agree with that. Like I said, he just was not up to par.
Yeah, not really Tempest. That's the thing. Just variations of the character in different forms. So it was maybe a bit tough for him to settle down there. Anyway.
Right.
All right. So our next issue, we'll be discussing Brutal Youth and The People versus Lois Lane.
With Brutal Youth, I'm hoping that it's not going to be something with kid actors again, although we haven't had some in a while, so it might be something for you to sink your teeth into.
Some sort of anti-aging potion or something? I don't know.
Ooh, yeah. You know what? That sounds familiar.
Reverse aging.
That sounds familiar unless I'm thinking of another TV show. Yeah. So, I like that. Anti-aging or de-aging people. Yeah, I like that. Very good. Very good. And then, of course, The People versus Lois Lane, there's going to be a trial. Got to be some kind of trial going on. I don't know exactly
She'll probably be framed for something or whatever.
Right. Not sure what. Exactly. We will find out next week, because that's it for this issue of the Rewatch Podcast. Keep up with listener interaction by liking our Facebook page at facebook.com/Rewatch Podcast or facebook.com/Lois and Clark Rewatch. Don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at Rewatch Pod, or visit our webpage at rewatchpodcast.podomac.com, which has links to some of our favorite sites there, such as zoomway.net, the folc.wiki.com, and the supermanhomepage.com, as well as links to our archive of film Rewatch episodes.
And as always, you can write us an email or record a voice message and send it to the rewatchpodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you've enjoyed the show, please consider giving us a rate and review on iTunes. Very helpful. And you can help support us by heading over to patreon.com/rewatchpodcast and make a monthly contribution as little as $1. And of course, our entire back catalogue is on YouTube, so just search Rewatch Podcast and subscribe today. All right, thank you for joining me again, Tom.
Yep.
Pleasure to talk as always. And I would just say, until next time, let's let these two lovebirds find their nest.
We gotta fly.
The Rewatch Podcast is not associated with Warner Brothers Television, ABC, Gangbuster Films Incorporated, or Round Delay Productions.
Don't believe everything you see on TV.
The use of any and all copyrighted material is only for parody, news analysis, critique, or educational purposes as provided in United States Code Title 17, aka Fair Use.
Let's get legal on this.
Music provided by Kevin McCloud at incompetech.com.
Great shades of Elvis.
Copyright 2017, The Rewatch Podcast.
Where are your beepers? We'll be in touch.